Okay, yeah, we're start recording right now. Okay, let's get a little bit casual about this. Okay. Yes, so many people are curious about why we set the title of this project. What is a good mother project? So, Jeannie, do you get that reaction as well?
Yeah, I know initially when I first joined the project, I was like, oh, why is it a good mother specifically and not like a good parenting or what makes a good parent? Because we are talking about parents, or at least right now we're talking about like what what does good parenting look like? What is like the optimal parenting style? How does that influence the child? Why is it just specifically to a mother, but not like parents in general? Do you want to explain why?
Because I mean, it's not like I don't think if the father is not important. In fact, I think the father figure is so important. But doesn't this question is inviting you to think about first, what is a good mother? Let's begin with that question first, and then what is a good father would our next subject matter. So I think that, this question is just to get us started on thinking about, what a good parent is. But if we just use parent as, the subject matter, that seems to me is too broad. So I wanted to narrow it down to what a good mother is because I'm a mother, and in psychology, we don't usually just, study about one gender. We usually study both genders, at the same time. But as a mother, I feel that the mother's role is slightly different from the father's role. And it's not just how I feel about this. I read many psychologists, talking about the differing roles of the mother and the father, particularly those psychoanalysts, people like Eric Fromm, they're like two different kinds of parental influences on the child, the mother and the father. So that's why I'm conscious about the differences between the mother's influence and the father's influence and the
Mm.
type of influences. Sometimes the mother can take up the father's role, right? Or sometimes the father can take up the mother's role. Yeah, so but they're different kinds of roles. Um, so that's why, they're different. But this is the first part of the project, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I wanted to say, I think for me, or at least like a connection, or not a connection, something that I thought about with like specifically mothers and like a more traditional like view of like the family, it's always like the father, or like traditionally, it's always like the father is the breadwinner, and then the mother is like more about like nurturing the child and like taking care of the child and like the household roles and stuff. And I think I kind of just made that connection with like parenting style. It's because it's like traditionally in the sense of like the father is always at work and it's more so like the mother is spending the time with the child. That's why we're discussing like how like ways of like nurturing the child, and that's kind of like my connection to like why we're looking at what is a good mother project versus like father. Maybe that would be more about like parental responsibility or like other aspects of taking care of the child, I guess. If that
Yes,
makes
exactly. Yes, exactly. Totally agree. Like, the mother's always the one who's responsible for taking care of the child, particularly when the child is really, small or young from an infant on. The mother's, I think the mother's nature is just like part of, the mother's having given birth to the child, the responsibility that the mother feels about, I must protect the child, must like do something to raise the child up to the best of my ability. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I think we all aspire to be become a good mother, right? Even though I know you obviously you're still single, you're not like you don't have a child yet, but is that sort of something that every woman sort of aspires to? Yeah. I don't think let me think before I was married, I was just single. When I was in college, I probably didn't think about this topic yet. But as I was studying psychology, I mean, that being a good mother is still like one thing that it's in the back of my mind. Even as like you, or if you are a daughter, I mean, you always, if you're a woman, obviously we're women, and we have a mother, and this question always have in my mind, like, the effect of your parents on you, right? So it's
Yeah.
always this topic that we talk about, I mean, psychology, we do look at this topic in a different way. We probably don't talk about parenting, in our everyday life conversation, like in the psychology class, right? We don't talk about parenting per
Mm.
se. Yeah. But everything about the individual, it's affected by the parents, right?
Yeah, I mean,
No
you
doubt
are
about
like usually like at a very core developmental stage in your life, and so any influence, specifically like someone you are around with all the time, or like you live in the same home as them typically, and so like that would obviously have a lot of impact on the child.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, so definitely this is a long lost topic that, that in this project we're trying to dig it out, and
Mm.
make it a prominent, hey, this is an
Yeah,
important subject matter. We need to visit it, revisit it again and again, do research, and
yeah.
let everyone know. Yes, if we can become a good mother. Yeah, and it would do a huge, contribute. We can make a huge contribution to humanity if we can,
Mm.
share, our findings about like what a good mother can be. That do a
Yeah.
huge, make a huge contribution to all of us.
Yeah. In the first episode, you were talking about the value of parental reinforcement. Could you explain what that is and why it's important in shaping the child's behavior?
The parental reinforcement. I didn't get to explain this term, but this term comes from the behavioral psychology, behaviorism, or behavior analysis. Um, if you recall behavioral psychology of the theories of learning, you recall this operant conditioning. In operant conditioning, um, we we shape behavior, including human beings and animals' behavior. We can shape behavior using reinforcement. So reinforcement is basically reward. Yeah. So how do we shape an animal to do a certain trick, or how do we engage human beings to do a particular behavior? We use reward. According to the law of effect, anything that is pleasant, we would embrace, we would do anything to get to a state of being or feeling pleasant, feeling, um, comfortable, being, feeling good, that sort of feeling is, you know, it's what we crave for, what people would crave for. So if we give a reinforcement, we that means we're giving this, sense of pleasantness, sense of, comfort, sense of feeling good. Okay, so how does this reinforcement apply in a parenting situation? Um, so when we want to shape a child's behavior, we want to use a reinforcement to shape it because we want to show the child that, okay, doing this is good, it's a good feeling. So be the activity, a child play, okay, so mom has some activity for you to do it, and obviously you want to create this environment that is really pleasant, really inviting. Like, okay, oh, I will feel really happy when I do this activity, be it just reading a book or be it um going to the park or going to a party or studying or doing homework, make it a pleasant experience to the child, and the child would follow. It's the same with human beings, same with adults, when you want someone to do something, you make the if you are a marketer, for example, you try to sell a product to a customer and want someone to try your whatever thing that you're trying to sell, make it a pleasant experience, right? Whatever, turn on the aircon, provide some refreshment, and then people will be drawn in. Same
Yeah.
with shaping a child's behavior. If this is a pleasant situation, is, or something that they feel comfortable, not something that they feel is dragging or, you're being judged or you like, okay, being criticized, we nobody loves criticism, including a child. They can feel it. They can feel, okay, it's going to be a torture when I do this. Yeah, obviously they're not going to do it, right? But if they feel,
Mhm.
oh wow, this is going to be fun, you can shape a child's behavior like this, giving them a reinforcement.
Is it more about creating like a positive environment so that the child intrinsically feels motivated to do the behavior, or is it more like direct like reward system? Or is it both?
Yeah, I like your question. Yeah, it is like reward system as well. So
Mm.
if the child comes to do that activity, they feel that they're gonna get the reward. Yeah, obviously,
Mhm.
yeah, they'll come, right? Yeah, same with the
Yeah.
animal. Yeah, when they come, they love to get a pat from you, right? If try to do it to a dog, if you ask them to come, but then like you scold them away. Next time, for a few more times, they're not gonna come. Because if they when they come, they're gonna get a punishment. Yeah. So the
Mm.
opposite of reinforcement is punishment. Yeah. So and then also if you don't give a reinforcement, it can be a punishment. You know that? Yeah.
Mm.
So if you
Like
withhold
the
the
absence of a
reward,
reward is a punishment?
yes, yes, it's called
Oh, okay.
negative punishment. Yeah, you try to take away something
Uh-huh.
good. Yeah.
Hmm. I think often people are, mothers in particular, are very conscious about like how to parent their child. And like I've heard from like what you've told me before, and also like I guess other people, like it's very common for a mother or like a parent in general to feel like they haven't done the right parenting style or parenting practices to bring about like specific child outcomes. Could you talk more about that and why there might be a disconnect?
Yeah, I think this is really important because, when we look at this diagram or this concept map, this
Mhm.
conceptual map of all these important elements that get to the outcome that is, the desirable child or adolescent outcomes, you can see that there are so many things involved, right? So first of all, there is a direct effect from the parenting practices to the adolescent outcomes. That means, whatever the parents ask the child to do, plan for the child to do, it does directly affect the child outcomes. So a case in point is that if you encourage a child to get more tutoring activities, for example, you want a child to get more studying done. more
Hmm.
properly or have a better understanding of the academic works, academic requirements, um, textbook and stuff. You get the child to go to more tutoring classes, you get a tutor, or you get the child to study more. You do get the child to do that because the child
Yeah.
might not do it on his or her own, you know.
Mhm.
But the more of this kind of studying activities that the child goes to, um, it will automatically lead to better outcomes. You would see that correlation and that causal effect, and yeah, that should be the expected outcomes, right? The more you
Yeah.
study, the better the outcome is. Okay, that's no problem. Okay, but then it comes to the now the term that we're talking about, the parenting style. What does it make a difference? What difference does it make, right, to the parenting practices? Is that your practices is good, your policy can be good, right? But the way you uh, talk about these policies, the way you engage the child in complying to these policies makes a difference. Makes a
Mm.
difference to how willing the child is, to be engaged in this activity. Um, Sometimes the child would engage in that sort of activity, but in a negative attitude, right? Okay, well, because you asked me to do so, I'll just go. Okay, but I'm not interested in the tutoring class.
Yeah.
And so the tutoring class can become ineffective if the child has a negative attitude.
And that's like directly as an influence of the parenting style.
Exactly. Like, yeah. So the parenting style is directly affecting the child's attitude. Can you
Mm.
imagine? Let me give you an example. The same example of like encouraging a child to do more tutoring or go to more studying
Hmm.
activities. If the parent is saying, okay, because you don't do really well in school and it's very negative, engage in this very hostile tone or very punishing criticism, um this condescending way, because or punishing way, oh, because you don't study enough. Okay, because look how bad your grades are, very negative. The child might feel reluctant. The child acknowledge that, oh yeah, I don't do really well in my school works, and
Mm.
that they feel that, "Oh, maybe I need to get more studying done or get some help from some tutors." But there's still this kind of negative attitude, this burst of anger is affecting the child. And so it does make that intervention, the parenting policies or intervention, less effective when the parents start off with a very, you know, punitive, attitude toward the child.
Mm.
This is
Yeah.
this is exactly this is this diagram is trying to illustrate. Although
Mm.
this diagram is just a conceptual model that was developed in the 1993, 1990s. Okay. And afterwards, there are a lot of a lot of studies of studying these relationships in more details. And this we were actually reviewing episode two. In our episode two, we're reviewing Garcia and Sarah's paper, which is studying specifically about the connection between parenting style and child outcome, pathway 4 in this diagram.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the direct pathway from parenting style to child outcome. So ignoring the parenting practices, whatever practices you used, it doesn't um, affect a lot if you have the right style.
I I don't know, understand this concept map, especially like pathway 4 and pathway 3. Like it doesn't matter like what the parenting practice is if the parenting style isn't optimal or like if it's not suited for the child to like receive the parenting practices, it's ultimately not going to lead to the outcome that the parent would want. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
like implement
Yeah.
a lot of training as the example, but if it's not conveyed to the child in like a more suitable, like in a way that they understand, accept, and like internalize, and like it is for the sake of your learning, not just for the grades. As an example, like that won't lead to the most effective outcome, which in this case would be like better grades or a better understanding of the topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then another thing is like the parental goals and values. Just
Mm,
sometimes parents do have specific goals and values about their parenting style. Some parents deliberately try not to praise a child because, okay,
mm,
I feel that that's okay, they feel that, okay, my values are that I never overpraise my child so that they will not feel like, okay, uh, bloated, like, or like, oh, I'm superior over the others. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I understand what you
yeah.
mean.
Some people don't really have that sort of value. They're like more traditional, like more reserved. Yeah, I don't praise that much. Just like it reminds me of Paul Dayo, that movie, that kind of like traditional Chinese. I don't, you know, that's no. So they always like criticize, like, yeah,
Mhm.
oh, you think that's good? That's not even, up to my standard, not even an inch, It's like, yeah, they set the standards really high, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's common in
So
a lot of like Asian parenting styles or like what parents of especially that generation like value and like what they think is important.
exactly, yeah. And that can create this sort of authoritarian parenting style. Yeah. With
Mm,
that kind of value, you can see that that's where it will lead to authoritarian parenting style. And authoritarian parenting style, it's a kind of cold
what
parenting,
is it authoritative?
authoritarian,
Oh,
authoritarian. Yeah. Oh, thanks for bringing it up because people often get
I feel
confused
like I
because I
always
mean,
get those confused.
exactly, because I mean they spell very similarly. That they both start with the term authority, right? It
Mhm.
begins with the word authority. Sometimes that's why the Chinese translation, sometimes they get very similar because
Mm.
authoritative and authoritarian, have this common authority word to begin with. But the difference between them is that the authoritative parenting, which we are hypothesizing, and a lot of research are supporting this idea, is that it's the best parenting style. Why is it? Because need the parents do need to exert authority over the child, right? Because that's the parental authority that every parent is innately, as a parent, you take up that role, right? It's really different, as a mother myself. I certainly felt that transition. That's why, like maybe some married couples would struggle whether to become a parent or not. Because once you become a parent, you have that responsibility of parenting an individual, like a human being, right? And it's a huge responsibility. It's a legal responsibility.
Yes,
You
yes, they
know,
are going to
if
hold
you
you to
don't,
a really
yes, you can get arrested if you if you abuse a child, if you don't treasure this human being that, God's given to you. It's not very easy to conceive and give birth to a child. And you got this legal parental authority to parent this child to become hopefully in the future a contributing individual to the society, right? It's a huge responsibility. So
Mhm.
the parent must engage or, you know, must embrace, should say, this authority. However, very interestingly, some parents gave up this authority. And that's another extreme. Yeah, there's another extreme called neglectful parenting. When we
Mhm.
talk about responsibility in the society, this reminds me of our episode two that we're going to publish soon. That talks about socialization, parental socialization. Why is
Mhm.
it important? Because, parents do have this, responsibility to help the child to get involved in the society. Like, think about the tribal people, the Aborigines. They would, in the society, they give birth to kids and then they would engage the kids into the tribal activities such as go hunting for fish, go, picking berries, do stuff that the parents would do stuff that the people in the society would do, how to behave in a group situation, how to play with friends, how to, you know, get along with friends in kindergarten classes, how to, yeah, all these things. When you see an adult, what do you say? Do you say hi or just ignore the individual? Like, or do you call them by names? All these things are like societal cultures, right? Mannerism, like social norms that,
Mhm.
we do. We think, okay, when we say hi to people in the morning, that's good, right? So do we teach a child to do this? If you have this value, okay, well, I want my child to be a good citizen, to be a good person. I would teach a child to say hi to people in the morning, right? Yeah, so that sort of thing. That's called parental socialization, and that is also parenting style. So yeah, so come watch our video, episode video two. Then it's a long one, but Garcia and Sarah talks about all these very important nuances of these terms, different
Yeah.
parenting style that we did introduce here, such
Mhm.
as the authoritative, authoritarian, indulgent, and neglectful. Now
Yes.
back to the difference between authoritative and authoritarian. Authoritarian is a term that other places use to that describe dictatorship. Did you know that?
Mhm. Like
Yeah. So,
authoritarian regimes,
yes, 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 yes. Dictatorship. So dictatorship. What is the characteristic of dictatorship?
just like a dominating figure that like one person decides everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like this. Yeah, the one person decides everything. Yeah, so that person is the authority, but is the only authority, and
Mhm.
the others have no say. So the opposite
Mm.
is democracy. Democracy with me, which
Yes.
means like, okay, I'm interested in hearing what you have to say.
Mhm.
I'm just part of the opinion, but I'm not the total. Doesn't mean in authoritative style, it doesn't mean that the parent is losing the authority. The parent is still having the authority, but the parent engages the child in a equal sort of in a two-way equal conversation. Yeah. So
Mm.
I think I owe you an explanation. I must explain to you
Yeah.
why I wanted you to do this, why I wanted you to
It's
come to my bedtime story. Yeah, for example.
mm.
Right?
So
Yeah, they
those are the
explain.
differences between authoritative and authoritarian parenting.
Yeah. So the parent doesn't just, okay, you must come because I'm your mother, you must follow my instruction. They don't
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
this is authoritarian, right? But
Hmm.
authoritative, which means, okay, it's really fun, come to my bedtime story. I'm gonna, wow, look at the pictures, so pretty. Yeah, that would engage a child in the same
Yeah.
activity, but in a different way, right?
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Keywords. Okay, let's stop this part of it.